that I've learned when I was young, like when I was 10, I've been to Disney. I went to Disney in Orlando, Miami, and Fort Lauderdale. So I met some places there. And I remember that like made me interested in learning to speak like a native. That was kind of my thought at the time. It was not like professionally or nothing. I just thought it was fun. So fun was actually the goal when I started. It wasn't for work or for studying or for anything. I just thought it was fun and I liked the culture. I'd like to believe that if I knew the language, I could live there or I could when I visit the country again, I would have like a better experience being able to talk to people because we had some challenges there on trying to buy things or communicate and we couldn't. So I felt this need of the language, but exactly just to have fun. So that was my goal in the beginning. So that is how I actually started learning by myself by just consuming a lot of content in English, immersing myself in English here in Brazil as most as I could. So I think it was a lot by just listening and picking up the language as if I was there, like an exchange or some type of experience like that, because I would just listen to English all day long.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, that was kind of my beginning process of learning it.
It's very interesting. So that's a really interesting motivation, right? Just to have fun and speak
Mhm.
like a native. What happened when you started speaking and you saw that you didn't speak like a native and that you saw that was going to be pretty far? How did you feel in that sense? What did that change for you in the learning process?
Mhm. I think for being a child, I didn't have that much expectation of like being perfect. It was almost like learning a song, like playing. It was actually fun, and I enjoyed this process of trying to reach the pronunciation, trying to like sing that song exactly in that way, doing those connected speech. So that was kind of challenging, kind of like a game to me at the time. And this is one of the things that I most try to like pass to my students, this idea of I didn't feel that all that frustration and that pressure that they feel, obviously because they are adults, they need English, so it's a different mindset. But that was my mindset in the beginning, like every pronunciation that was difficult, that was like, oh, fun, this is what I have to do today. I will train that, I will practice that, I will learn this lyric this week, so I will be listening to that, and then when I could hit it, like do the correct pronunciation, I would be happy, and then I would just want another one. So it was motivating to me to find these challenges and things, and it became like a habit. Is what I do until today. Every time I listen to something like, disconnected sound is interesting. I will try to do that. So that is something that became a habit to me, trying to improve it. So I know it was something that I couldn't do, but I didn't feel frustrated. I feel more motivated in doing it. So, and this is what I try to teach my students. Like, there will not be the day where you feel like, okay, that's all the English that I had to learn. It's over now. There will not be that day. So, I feel like this is interesting. This is motivating to me. And this is why I talk a lot about the lifelong learning thing,
Right.
because I feel like some people believe that, okay, I finished the advanced, I reached C2 level, so now it's over. Like, no, it's not.
Absolutely. And lifelong learning is can be perceived in two different ways, right? We as adults, we seem to perceive things as a much more logical way or maybe more emotionally connected way, um, in a way that uh, anything that we try to achieve is perceived as like something that requires a lot of focus and discipline and etc. But
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people miss the mark with that when they, instead of beating themselves up with the idea that you have to spend time doing something even though it's hard, or did you really need to focus and invest a lot of time and energy even though it's difficult? It's like, yes, that is true, But if you change your perspective a little bit, it actually changes the entire experience, right? Like, um, there is there are phases to learning,
Yeah.
and every part of that, every phase is an experience in itself. The beginner phase, I feel, is a phase of where you really don't know anything. You're just kind of like driving blind, you know. You're
Mhm.
kind of like
Yeah.
discovering and getting new
Mhm.
words and getting new
Mhm.
ideas of
Mm.
structure, understanding the sequence of words and kind of
Mhm.
recognizing patterns in different verb tenses and being like, oh, so in the present it's like this. Oh, in the past, every time they talk about the past, it's like that, you know, and actively observing things makes a big difference. And like you said, perceiving it as a game sometimes is probably one of the most healthy ways to perceive learning in general. And it's not a game against anyone, it's
Yeah.
much more a game with yourself about like, what is it that I want to practice today, and
Yes.
what does it mean to me to win? Right? What is winning in this game?
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
If I can, if I'm in a new class and I'm practicing, let's say the simple present, and I have a hard time understanding the sequence of words, maybe the game in that class is,
Mhm.
if I can understand it better, that's a win.
Mhm.
And then the ways of understanding it better kind of depend on what you do to
Mhm.
discover. Am I going
Mhm.
to ask a question to the teacher? Am I
Yes.
going to research something else? I'm going to
Mhm.
look at a bunch of different classes and see which one really gives me the key or that
Mhm.
makes more sense to me, you know.
Yeah.
And then once I do that, I beat the game, right? I
Mhm.
scored,
Yeah.
right? And I feel like that is definitely a good perspective to have when it comes to facing difficulties. Because if you see
Mhm.
the difficulty as something that you just need to push through regardless and just be very disciplined about, it's like, yeah, why do you want to take the perspective that makes you suffer the most?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like why would you do that? That seems to be like a common theme in some cultures. And I feel like in Brazilian
Yeah.
culture,
Uh-huh.
that is, or maybe South American culture, that is a thing where a lot of suffering is
Yeah.
somehow rewarded.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
it's a culture of
Yeah.
suffering where you need to be like
Yeah.
suffering to then be
Yeah.
rewarded. You can't
Yeah. Like
play
there's
a
no reward
game.
without a
Yeah,
struggle, you know. Yeah.
yeah. You know, I think that that goes into the lifelong learning aspect,
Mhm.
right? It's not easy to maintain a lifelong learning perspective,
Yes.
right? In my opinion, you have to be humble to accept the things
Yeah.
you don't know, for sure. You have to be proactive to look for
Mhm.
answers, absolutely. And you have to be curious to kind of
Yes.
question things that are that you don't know about, you know, and
Mhm.
be curious enough to know how, why,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
and kind of apply that in lifelong learning uh,
Yeah.
philosophy in your life. What do you think?
Yeah, that is the main thing for me, the curiosity. Like this is what I want to like awake on my students, like transform this idea of this fear of this unknown to this curiosity. Oh, this is what I don't know. I want to know about it. Like not like, oh, I don't know this, so let me not even go there. Like, because you will not get better at it doing that. So, and this is what I feel is the struggle with students a lot of times. Like they want to learn that thing, but they don't want to go there. And I need like to take their hand to say, let's go, guys. It's okay. It's fine. Like it's not a monster. Let's do it in a fun, light way. I will be teaching you simple present, but you'll be talking about your routine. Like that's how I do it. So I can kind of distract them from that. Like, oh, I'm so scared of that grammar. Okay, so let's talk about your routine. And then we'll be doing the simple present thing, and you don't need to worry about it. Okay, oh, the present perfect. All right, so let's talk about your travel experiences. And that is how we will do the present perfect thing. Don't need to think about it. Just let's use in that way. And then I will teach you how to talk about these experiences that you don't know exactly what happened. And this is how we talk about it, and let's talk about it and use it, and you will feel that you can do it. And like you said, like the focus, the perspective is just change a little bit, and it will change the whole thing, like the whole process and how you actually learn it. So I feel like that's what I try to do. It's to unteach them this idea that, oh, English is so hard. It's just for very intelligent people who studied in the best private schools or whatever.
Or lived abroad.
And yeah, and also there is obviously the stereotype of people thinking that, oh, you're Japanese and you're smarter and those type of things that does not apply in that way. Like, yes, I had probably a social class that allowed me to practice more English than other people could, but it's not because I am Japanese descendant that I have a better ability. And then people believe that I have studied, like people who enter at USP study, and I didn't. Like I could never learn English if I had to do that, like to study and do books and like do all these years of English courses. Like I could never. So it for me was this way that I've learned. So this is what I want to teach my students, that it is possible. It's better. It's actually more effective and more fun too.
Absolutely. What were the aspects of books that give you that aversion? Like I couldn't learn with
Hmm.
these books and these things like that.
The book?
Books, like you said, oh, I couldn't learn with the books and all that
Ah,
stuff. Like spend all so many years with this
yeah.
traditional learning
I
process.
didn't actually stay many years in English courses, but as a teacher, I used books to teach them at the school, and I saw what they had to do. And as adults, yes, they should have something to guide their learning process, but like that is one thing that I think would not work for me. I tried when I was younger, the English courses and those books, filling in the blanks, those type of things. It was not how I would learn.
Oh,
So it was
oh,
very hard for me to teach that way also.
right. So you had a different profile, I guess, huh?
Yeah. I really wanted the conversation thing, which like explains a lot about what I do now. But yes, it was the thing to, because I knew that I would not learn all those theories if I could not apply it. If I would just accumulate those theories until one day when I finished the course, I would be able to use it and talk about it. Like, how would I remember? So I knew it wouldn't work like since the beginning, but I was doing it when I was a teenager. My parents want me to do it. We believed it worked. When you go there and apply to the school, they say about the method, and you believe it will be the best thing. But as a teacher and as a student, I could see like this actually distracts you from what you actually want to do, which is use the language. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Okay. I was going to ask you a question about your profile. Like, what kind of activities have you related to or have resonated with you that have helped you bridge gaps in your learning?
Hmm. Definitely songs. I was very like nerd in that way of the lyric things, because in my time, which was a very different thing, I don't know if I don't think would be possible today, but we used to have those charts on CDs, like the physical thing with the lyrics. So I would take that and I would like cross mute silent letters, and I would like bridge connected speed connected words and things like that, and I would do that like repeatedly, like many, and I still do it, but nowadays I just listen to the song and I just keep listening or repeat like for a week and all the time until I get it perfectly. So it became like a habit, this kind of game to me, but I think it was the best thing for the way that I speak, for listening and understanding native people. And that was actually my main goal, like to understand them speaking like the way they speak. Because I remember having this shocked when I went to USA the first time, and like they don't talk like we were learning at the English school. Like it's
Absolutely,
not
yeah.
like the audios, the dialogues on those tapes. Like, so then I realized, okay, so that is not the English that I need to learn. This is the real English. So then I started to use a lot of real things like series, music, native people speaking. That was until today is my main thing. Like I want to listen and I want to understand it and the way that they speak. I don't want it to be slower or easier, like just the way they do it. I want to get that. So I think trying to understand without subtitles actually was not an option also because we only had like this SAP thing on the remote control. We couldn't change subtitles. We didn't have Netflix streamings, internet on TV. So it was either Portuguese or English without subtitles, and I would do that. I would do the English without subtitles and force myself to understand it. So just using what I had. So I think it was what really helped me more than books and study and school. But I was in a private school. I had some grammar topics at school because I liked English. It helped me. But if you do not like English, I think schools never was the thing that motivated anyone to learn English. So
No,
that was
absolutely.
also another thing that was very frustrating to me, like how people say, "Oh, you have English at school," or I have a son. He's 14 years old. I put him in a school that's supposed to have English every day, but still the same thing, like a lot of grammar, a lot of theory, fill in the blanks, and not really learning. So
Very
that was.
interesting. You said that you were bridging a lot of the connected
Mhm.
words and doing this over and over again and really doing a lot of meticulous analysis of lyrics, right? Something that you really
Mm,
love.
really?
And how do you feel about the expectations that we as teachers sometimes put on students in terms of how much energy that we expect them to put in, right? I feel like this is a lot of energy, right? Getting something that you
Mhm.
love
Yeah.
does definitely encourage you to put in a lot of energy,
Yes.
right? But my question is, students don't have a lot of students don't have a strong enough motivation
Yeah.
to put in that energy. And
Mhm. Mhm.
sometimes as teachers, we try to lower our expectations of like how much effort they should put in based on the reality that they have. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, you don't
Mhm.
have a good motivation. Let's say if you have a student who wants to learn English because of work and he doesn't like his work, it's like,
Yes.
yeah, you don't have a strong enough motivation that's going to give you the energy to do the work that's actually going to give you very quick results.
Mm. Mhm.
How do you deal with that expectation? How does that work for you in your individual experience? Of your expectation of you as a teacher towards students' effort.
Mhm.
How do you deal with that?
I understand. It's been a challenge for me in the beginning, especially because I thought it was okay. They need to have homework and they need to like follow that process, like in the school, which I saw a lot of students didn't follow. And I thought about myself, like if I were an adult learning English today, I would probably not be doing any homework, but I would be watching my documentaries. I'll be listening to music. So what I do with my students is uh, get a lot of interest about what they really like. I have a student, for example, who lives in USA. He just works all the time, has a family, almost have no time for his family, just go to the church on Sunday, like, and go back to work. So that is basically his life. And he wanted to, he lives in USA, he needs English for work and to leave. And, but I realized that the biggest motivation was because his kids are growing up in USA. So they are almost not speaking Portuguese. anymore, so he has to communicate with them. So if I were doing a class about like, oh, let's use English for work and those things, I realized you get so bored and he would be so quiet. But then I realized like asking about his kids, and he loves to cook, and then I asked him to explain what he cooked on the weekend and how to do it. And then we were talking about like using MasterChef videos and things, and then he would like just wanted to talk about it. So this is what I do with most students, like try to find their interest, because that is what worked for me. As I told you, I didn't have this, like my motivation was not just to be good at English, but I wanted to understand the language because I wanted to live in that country, or I wanted to go there more times. Like, so I always try to find that very core motivation that sometimes not even the student knows, and doesn't have to be English. A lot of them will not be like me that wanted to be good at English. They just, like you said, need English for work or to travel or for something else. So I focus on that, and I use English as a tool to talk about it. And this is how I introduce my classes and my methodology for students. And usually works because a lot of them said it's like therapy, because I want to know a lot about them. I want to simulate conversations that they will actually have outside the class, not
Yeah.
like we did at the course. Like they would talk about Kate and John and Mary, but they would not talk about themselves. So I feel like just that alone, just listening someone talking about themselves and having the space to talk about yourself, it's already good enough for most of them, adults, busy. So just having someone listening is good, and then learning English, it's kind of the bonus on that. This is how I try to make them feel, even though I know it's a class and that is the priority to learn English, but I try to make them feel like the main thing here is to have a conversation and not to be perfect and learn all the English. So, yeah, that is how I try to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, relevance is a really big part that I feel is missed in most books and schools. I feel the best schools they add relevance.
Hmm.
They do active activities, things that involve the students' tasks that the students really need to put themselves into the situation and do something with themselves, with
Hmm.
them and other people in real life.
Hmm.
A kind of immersive experience with a good
Hmm.
foundation for production. I feel the best
Hmm.
schools have that kind of stuff. Mostly the most expensive schools for sure would have that, I feel. And I think that for some reason that has not been brought into the mainstream, let's say popular courses, you know,
Yeah.
and I wonder why that is the case,
Yes.
right? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I also had this problem when I worked at the school. I also worked in politics. So it's that type of thing when you think, okay, people are there doing this job and doing all this work probably for the right reasons. They want to teach English, or politicians, they want to change the country and things like that. But then when you realize it's a business, you understand a lot of decisions are made focusing on the business side of things. So maybe I feel like that is the case in most of English schools. They feel like they don't want to the student to learn, so they would quit the school for some reason. And I say this to my students, like I think this is what school do, but in my own experience, I know that if I find someone that I could speak English to that would improve my English, I would just want to do that forever if I could pay for it and I would have like the schedule for it and everything. And this is what I feel like most of my students are looking for. Like they are not looking just for, oh, just teach me English in 3 months or 2 months or a year. They just want to keep practicing and improving it. And just like having a personal trainer to go to the gym, like he will not do the exercise for you. Maybe he will not even explain a lot of things, but he'll be there supporting you, following you in this journey, and supporting you and guiding you. So that is what I think would work better. Yeah.
Okay, like have someone really like following up on the student as he goes through his learning
Yeah.
process.
And I think for schools, they would. I remember a lot of times that I would wanted to make different decisions focused on the students, and that would not match the business decisions. So a lot of times, like, no, Klaus, we're not doing that way because it's better for the student, but it's not better for us. So we will do that thing, that other thing. So this is why I think in the private classes, when I started doing my own classes, I was doing everything I couldn't do that I thought would work better if I was a student and if I was the teacher, which I was at the course, but I couldn't change anything. So, yes, I try to adapt some of the things that worked from the school. Like, yeah, for some people, I do believe that the grammar, the books, and everything really work. Some
Absolutely.
people, yeah, like that foundation, the base, and they will develop, but they will do that extra work. Like, they would be practicing it, they would probably be like trying to practice by using that somewhere, like doing something outside of the class. I think just the the classes on an English course would not be enough, the methodology that they use. So what I offer is that practice. So even if the student want to have, and I have students who like they do like the traditional courses and they do conversation with me. So yeah, I think depends on the person, but and I think the for business is not really scalable. I don't know if that's a word, but
Yeah.
something that they can actually offer to like 100 people personalized classes when you have a class with like 14 students with different levels and one teacher. So yeah, not something they would be able to commercialize, even though I thought they could offer like some individual sessions or something, but I don't think that would be very interesting to pay a teacher those very big 14 reais an hour or 20 reais an hour
Yeah. Wow.
salary to teach a student.
Wow. Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
Wow. 14. Is that what they're still paying?
When I entered was 17, and then I got a raise for 19, and during the pandemic I negotiated 21. That was my last
21
salary per
reais per
hour.
class
Per hour.
per
Yeah.
hour.
Yeah. Which was 1 hour and a half for
Yeah. So
myself.
then you get 1.5%.
Yeah.
1.5
But
times that value. Wow, that's so crazy. I didn't know that because in 20, what was it? 2009, I
mm,
think, is when I actually started teaching in a school. And from 2009 to
mm.
2012, the value, the price in Juiz de Fora, in Minas Gerais, was 14 reais.
Oh,
So I can only imagine, like, you live in São Paulo, right?
yeah. São
Glauci?
Paulo. Hmm.
Wow. And this was the pandemic. That was what, like 5 years ago?
Yeah.
5 years ago. So in 10 years, it went up maybe, well, in 5 years, right? 2010, 2009 to
Hmm.
20, 22, 21 was or was it 2020, the pandemic?
2020.
2020.
Yes.
So yeah,
Pandemic. Yeah.
wow.
Was the last year I've worked for the school. I started in 2015. In 2015 was 17 for new teachers, like who
2018,
2015,
2015. Yeah, okay. So it was
17. Yeah.
17 guys. And in 2020, it was 19 AIs. So from 2010 to 2020, it went up about six
Hmm.
AIs. That is fascinating. That is so crazy. This is insane. Like that, to pay a person that in the value that the real has is just so low. You can't even buy a meal with 21 reais.
Yes, that is true. Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you'd have to give 2 hours of class to buy a
I know.
meal and a
Hmm.
drink. That is
Crazy.
so insane. Yeah.
It is.
So
Yeah.
why do you think that people continue to work in schools? Why do you think that it continues to have traction and some schools continue to grow using that model?
Hmm. I think it's I don't even know how they would say this in English when we say like sucatear the profession, like having low quality professionals that
Mm,
will accept because I see what a lot of schools do is that because you don't need to have like a degree to teach, a lot of the schools they get their best students and made them into teachers because for them, if you are a student and you get invited by the school to become a teacher, you will feel like good. You feel that it's a good thing for you. You'll probably be able to do it since the school is asking you to do it. They will give you some type of training. You know the material. You have done that material before, so you basically is a student
yeah,
teaching other student. And this is what happens. So they would have students teaching other student in that same methodology where he didn't learn, but he doesn't know he didn't learn because he got the diploma. He's teaching other people, but they will all have the same English, like this non-English that they have for English school. They know how to pass. They know how to go to the next level, to the next classroom or whatever they use in schools. Like in our at Wise Up, for example, we didn't have different classes, so it would be from basic to advanced in the same class. So you just go to the next book or something, and they quickly learn how to do that without learning any English. So they can go through the whole course just learning. Okay, so I put this here. They know like the system, the techniques to do it, and then they just teach to the next student how to do that. And a lot of times it's this, a lot of obviously unmotivated teachers with that salary. And then they just go there to just open the book, show slides, and go home. So yeah, I feel like there's always someone um, willing to do that type of job and teaching because they also had that type of learning. Yeah.
so interesting. That is so
So
interesting, right? Because I don't think there is another profession that will
yeah,
be paid that low,
yeah, yeah.
at least for such an important skill, right? Which is
Mhm.
English, right? People change they get raises, promotions and things like that when they learn this language. So, like, why
Yes.
would the teachers be first selected as beginner teachers, as teachers that aren't actual teachers,
Mhm.
right? Um, and then paying them so low. Like, that is
Yeah.
an interesting business model that I think we can talk about another time. But for
Mhm.
now,
Yeah.
I think we'll close it here because there's a lot of
Mhm.
other stuff to talk about. But I really want to
Yes.
try to keep these podcasts a little bit to like 30 or 40 minutes max. And
Okay.
Glauci, can you tell people where people can find you, where they can find you online?
Sure. Yes, I have my Instagram profile at teacher underline Glauci. It's the same of my TikTok account. And there I have my WhatsApp link also on my bio. So if you want to reach me, I'll be there.
Amazing. Excellent.
Yeah.
Glauci, thank you so much for coming. It was
Thank
an
you.
amazing conversation. Today we talked a little bit about how you started learning English. We talked about perceiving learning as a game. We talked about lifelong learning as well. We talked about the culture of suffering and merit in learning, learning with books and student profiles, right? What activities helped you bridge the gap in your learning and the expectations of teachers towards students' effort, the business aspect of ESL schools getting in the way of learning, and
Mhm.
how ESL businesses pay teachers and about how it's sustained.
Yes.
So
Perfect.
that was really interesting, a really interesting
Yeah,
conversation with a
I
lot of
loved it.
different topics. Thank you so much, Glauci.
Thank
I'm
you.
super looking forward to the next conversation that we have,
Yeah,
and I
me
hope you have
too.
an amazing day.
Yeah, you also. Thank you very much again for this opportunity.
Anytime. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.